can see everyone's a bit tired now at the end of the day. Ending on a strong note with two of the best builders in stablecoins at the moment. So I guess quick, easy question to start. It would be great to just get an intro on yourselves and your businesses. Yeah.
For sure. Hey guys, my name is Sam. I'm the founder of Frax. It's a stablecoin issuer, DeFi platform. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Luca. I'm the CEO and one of the two founders of M0. So M0 is a universal stablecoin issuance infrastructure layer for app builders. So talking again about stablecoins, unfortunately.
Yeah, too much of it. So yeah, I think the stablecoins as a business, as an industry, has changed quite a bit in the last 5 years in terms of approaches. I think we saw a pretty monolithic sort of design in terms of how they were done in the past, in the last cycle. You sort of had DeFi stablecoins and then Tether and Circle, and that was kind of the full spectrum. I think actually a great innovation that you brought to the market, Luca, was this idea of can you be a back-end service provider or a universal platform for a bunch of different stablecoins to sort of proliferate. I guess it might be correct in saying that you maybe have slightly different versions of the world in terms of where the space is going. So I think your model of the world is that there's going to be many issuers who want to control their own stablecoin, their own brand, and you're basically a platform that sits in the background facilitating that. And then Frax, you obviously own and issue your own stablecoins, and obviously want that to sort of drive through your own tokens. I'm just interested in how you sort of see the space evolving. Is that sort of consistent with your view in terms of almost every business platform is going to own their own stablecoin in an end state?
Yeah, I mean, I always thought that at M0, we always thought that stablecoins, I mean, money is infrastructure, money is not a product. I think people get confused because the beginning of stablecoin era was dominated by two monolithic issuers like Circle and Tether. But in my opinion, money is infra, and the most important thing about money is interop and liquidity. So, and the issuance per se is not necessarily too important. So that's what we are building at M0 is a layer where the application builders, they can develop their own version of the money and program it, and this stuff is interoperable and is connected at the issuance with whatever they require, with the assets they required, which interestingly enough is the way we thought about stablecoins in DeFi at the beginning. Like, I come from the Maker ecosystem, and in Maker there are many issuers issuing the same token. I think that this idea of infrastructure is where the market is going. The market is getting crowded on this, but I think that the market is big. So you have M0 building in the space, Frax building in the space, you guys are building in the space in the same, coming from a different direction. We see Bridge coming at the same. So I think there are different flavors, but this idea that we are building infra layers for developers to build cool stuff on top and using digital money and getting access to yield and features is where the future is going for the next 5 years, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I think from like a foundational perspective, since everyone here is really into stablecoins and probably knows some of the industry history of stablecoins, if everyone kind of rewinds back to like the early views of what an immaculate design stablecoin was supposed to be, right? Everyone had this algorithmic stablecoin idea of like it has the best qualities of Bitcoin. It's decentralized, there's no bank account needed to keep it stable, but it's also in this unit that everyone likes and has debt in and can do accounting in USD, right? And I think for a long time, the industry basically was searching for the holy grail of stablecoins, which is what was trying to basis, Terra, and then the first version of Frax, which we've upgraded to something different. But the idea after Terra was that I think the industry as a whole, in terms of what the collective consciousness of the crypto industry thought, is that actually that is not the immaculate design of a USD stablecoin. The highest market TAM of a USD stablecoin is not something like that has the best qualities of Bitcoin and is stable to USD, because that doesn't exist. If you're going to use USD, you should have a safe unit, and then for everything else, there's like Bitcoin, Ethereum, right? Those are decentralized, immutable, and those are stores of value, but they're volatile. And I think the main thing we're gonna see is that there's basically two structures of stablecoins post-Terra. There is payment stablecoins, and there's yield-bearing stablecoins, of which I think Ethena right now is the king of that market, right? And the way that we think about it at Frax is that what are the best qualities for a payment stablecoin, and what are the best mechanisms that generate the best risk-adjusted yield? And we have basically two products, Frax USD, which is a Genius-compatible payment stablecoin, which BlackRock, Fidelity, WisdomTree have the collateral as RWAs as backing and minting and redeeming. And then we have a yield-bearing stablecoin. Our view in the long term is that these are the two ways that the USD unit will work on-chain.
And in terms of business models, I think it's no secret. I think people sort of think about Tether as one of the best business models that exist on Earth now. But I think as you sort of go down the list of issuers below Tether, it's sort of an increasingly less clear picture how good of a business model they sort of are. And I think, as you sort of touched on, there's quite a bit of competitive pressure across the market now with new entrants, both from TradFi, normal financial institutions, but then also natively within crypto. How do you guys sort of think about the business models on a go-forward basis for stablecoin issuance, stablecoin infrastructure, and what do you see as like a natural end state or equilibrium for these business models?
Yeah, I think people, I mean, not probably in this room, but traditional financial institutions, people, they're confusing issuance. They think the power is in issuance because they're getting confused by Tether. I think Tether is an incredible business because they control distribution and liquidity. The issuance is so unimportant that for a long time people kind of didn't even know what is actually backing Tether. But it's so liquid, the network of acceptance is so powerful, the brand is so powerful that they can keep high margins. And we already see like Circle, for example, where they do not control the entire distribution they have, they're leaving a lot of margins on the table. So we think that most of the distribution, rightly so, is at the application level. If you're building cool stuff, cool products for your users, you should actually be compensated by that. So I think that the infrastructure layer, there's not going to be one player, there are going to be few players because infrastructure depends on what type of application you build on top. Probably if you're a DeFi protocol or a chain, or if you're Walmart or a bank, you need a different type of infrastructure. But there's going to be infrastructure in the middle that is going to get very large and have is very light because it's built on smart contracts, but it's going to have very low margins, but very large. So I think it's enough to create very successful businesses. I think we should get worried as like our commercial banks. Like the reality is that we are after bank deposits, and that we're going to see a huge volume of bank deposits that now are subsidizing the lending of banks moving out. And I think this is the margin we're all taking. How it's going to be distributed? In my opinion, the issuance layer is going to take a margin, but it's going to be very thin. Most of the stuff is going to go. The foundational infrastructure layer is going to get very agile, low margin, but large. And most of the stuff is going to go to the distribution. Not necessarily to the end user. I think to the applications that are building cool stuff and are packaging products, in my opinion.
Maybe just to drill down into that piece, how do you guys think about captive distribution, or is that something that you're even thinking about? So I think you've seen some of the largest entities in the space start to think about, do we build a chain? Do we build distribution around that? Is it with an exchange? Where do you sort of see your core distribution or like the most interesting distribution platform for your own business?
So for us, for example, we want to be agnostic. So I think that we will be where the distribution is. I think that I'm personally not a believer in like special purpose stablecoin chains. We'll see. I think that there are certain chains that aggregate a lot of assets. There are very special purpose chains like Hyperliquid that are doing very interesting stuff. But for us, I mean, we're very agnostic. We're trying to build interoperable infrastructure that operates where the distribution exists. Obviously, we are DeFi focused rather than centralized. Like there are others that are building more decentralized rails. But I don't know. I'm very agnostic. I don't know where this is going.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty agnostic to it too. But I think a lot of people are wondering what things are actually competitive against each other. Like, is a stable chain competitive to like Ethereum or another stable chain, Tempo, Stable, Plasma, all these things, or is it more like a different layer? For example, I think a lot of you have MacBooks here, right? But most of you probably use Chrome as your web browser, right? Technically, Apple could make it really, really hard for Chrome to work on your MacBook, but Google and Apple don't compete on that layer, at least not entirely. They don't block each other out. But for example, on the iOS Android layer, if you buy an Android, you probably aren't buying an iPhone for that use. So they definitely compete in zero sum in that layer, right? And so I think the question really is, in 2 years when we look back, are the chains actually competitive to other L1s? My personal take, which is why I might be a little more bullish on payment chains, is that they're not foundational technology. They're not like coming out with like a new like scaling solution or ZK or something. They're more deals on stablecoins. So they offer zero transaction payments, or like they might partner with particular type of merchants, and if you pay here, you'll get this much cash back more than the others or whatever if you pay that's settled on Solana or something, right? And I think that itself is closer to Chrome on MacBook than iOS versus Android.
Makes sense. Genius was obviously a big topic this year, and I think it's something that's excited everyone who's sort of building within the space. Interested in your approach within your respective businesses in terms of how you think about it, if you are at all. And then I think the second question is there a fundamental unlock that Genius sort of provides for you, whether it's distribution, new markets, or is it just sort of like a base level requirement to interact with certain institutions that you want to speak to?
For us, Genius was massive, and we tried to collaborate in good faith on the draft of the legislation. We founded M0. We called M0, not M1, because for us, we wanted to create something that was the closest representation to cash. The money we have in our bank accounts is not cash, it's bank counterparty risk. And we wanted to create some sort of pristine layer that was risk-free proxy on-chain. Now, you could do it in the offshore market. You couldn't do it in the US. You cannot do it in Europe, because Europe is protecting the banking system, and it says you want to launch a stablecoin, you need to keep 60-70% of deposits in a traditional bank, which is like M1. So we stayed out of the US because the US standards were not good enough for us to interact with issuers. Now Genius changed it. And Genius is pretty much saying things that are very, very powerful. It's like you can actually do issuance of a digital cash instrument, bypassing the banking system up to certain levels, or actually not having, fractional reserve. I've been an investment banker in financial institutions all my life. Fractional reserve is something that we don't really use, but there is no equity ratio. This stuff is fully funded, which is super safe for the user. If a stablecoin issuer goes down in the US, the user is super senior in case of bankruptcy of the issuer. It's the safest thing you can see. So I think that this is an incredible unlock. It means that the users are not forced to leave liquidity subsidized in the banking system, but they can actually create better instruments that are more technologically savvy. Now, this will create turbulence in the banking system, in my opinion, that is going to be difficult to manage, but we'll see. But for us, this is an incredible unlock. Also because, so it opens a US market, and you guys are issuing Ethena with our friends at Anchorage. We integrated with Bridge as a new US issuer to issue the MetaMask dollar in the US. But the whole world is looking at the US. So I think this is an incredible paradigmatic shift for the sector.
So I think when Genius happened, I actually kind of almost lived in DC during March because I was so obsessed with being a part of like the drafting process, the definitions and everything. I met with the two authors, Senator Loomis and Senator Haggerty. I actually did like a panel with him even before the bill because I really think it's a new era for stablecoins, not just a piece of legislation. And I think the important thing people miss is that it's not just something like MiCA. This is from the actual government that issues USD, right? This is not like the UAE, the VASP regulatory, whatever. This is literally the entity that issues USD saying that this thing that complies in this way is seen as a real digital dollar. And that's why everyone is coming out with issuing their own stablecoins, using M0 to issue their own stablecoins, and perfectly timed stablecoin strategies. Actually, I know you're the mod here, guy, but I think I wanted to actually ask you.
Don't do that.
No, I wanted to ask you how you see Genius with USDTB, because that is a new product, and how that interacts with it, and if that's allowed, Sergio.
Yeah, I think we just have like a dual token structure, which I think is not dissimilar to the way that Paolo was describing his strategy on stage earlier, which is onshore payment stablecoin for certain use cases which aren't as suitable as you find with USD. And then USD is much more of like an offshore product that targets DeFi use cases, collateral on offshore exchanges, and those different pieces. I think the recognition that we have, though, is that the best business models in stablecoins are kind of offshore business models. It's like competing in the US where there's very good financial infrastructure around these things, is just a harder business to be in. And it gives me pause for concern when people like Stripe, PayPal, Visa are trying to get into this market. I sort of ask myself the question, what sort of advantage do I have in that market versus those entities? So yeah, I think we wanted to have both products so that we could serve users across the full spectrum of sort of dollar products. But I think the focus for us is still very much like USD offshore, yeah.
Awesome. I'll turn it back to you as the mod.
Maybe just one controversial question to end. Who is your biggest competitor that isn't sitting on the stage right now? To both of you.
Oh man, that's a great question. It's hard because it's hard to know if it's like the Google Chrome or the iOS versus Android, but I am a seed investor in Ethena, and I'm extremely happy about it. But I wouldn't be lying if a lot of the times the people we talk to, they're like, oh, we're considering Ethena already. So maybe I'll say Ethena.
Not on the stage, I said. Not on the stage, yeah.
Does it count? You're a mod, but okay. Well, let's see. I would say Circle.
Okay.
So I will not follow your orders. I think that in my opinion, the probably what I consider the most sophisticated and faster executors in this space are Ethena and Stripe Bridge, and I think we're pretty good as well at M0. But I also think that we come from different angles. We have different constraints. And I also think that we are in one of the most privileged moments in history where we're building in a market that is going to 10, 20x in the next 10 years. So this is the time to make friends and build cool stuff and just steal the lunch of the banks. And I think probably in 10, 20 years' time is going to be the time to do like optimization and market share type of activity. So I think there is a lot to build and a lot to build together personally.
Trillions together, right? Trillions.
Indeed. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.